Good evening, everyone. So, today we will be discussing the heart lung interactions that happen in spontaneously breathing patients and even in mechanically ventilated patients. Why are we so worried about these heart lung interactions? So, they happen normally, and that's because the heart and the lungs are together in a confined space, that is, in the thoracic space. So, that is the reason why the pressures which are generated by the lung, they affect the heart as well, because the pulmonary circulation is connected to the heart. The right ventricle has to empty its blood into the pulmonary artery. The left atrium has to receive its blood from the pulmonary circulation. So because of the lung volume, so the main determinant is basically the lung volume, which is actually responsible for changes or varied changes in the pressures in the pulmonary or in the pulmonary pressures, which affects the heart. So that is why these heart lung interactions are excessively important for us to know. To begin with, they occur because of the interplay between the cardiovascular and the respiratory system, and they result from the respiratory induced changes in the intrathoracic pressures, which get transmitted to the cardiac cavities, and again the respiratory induced changes in the alveolar pressures, which impact the lung microvessels. Because you know that there are alveolar vessels, intraalveolar vessels, there are extraalveolar vessels, and which in turn affects the pressures in the pulmonary circulation. So that affects the heart. The hemodynamic consequences of heart-lung interactions result from the fact that when they are in a confined space of thorax, so there is a cardiovascular system on one hand and the respiratory system on the other hand. They are subjected to different pressure regimes. But physiologically, these heart-lung interactions do not really cause any hemodynamic consequences. Like you and me, we are breathing spontaneously right now. Are we really worried about our hemodynamic effects because of this every respiratory cycle? It doesn't happen. Moreover, even in a patient who's under general anesthesia, whom we are mechanically ventilating, we are not always worried about the hemodynamic consequences. With every respiratory breath, we do not see what the blood pressure is, what the heart rate is with every cycle. So, whatever these heart lung interactions are happening, they are definitely happening. But they are so physiological that the hemodynamic consequences are not significant really, unless there are some pathological conditions in the patients, or if your tidal volumes are severely excessive. Like nowadays, the tidal volumes that we use in the OT is around 6 to 8 ml per kg of ideal body weight. Initially, in the very older times, the tidal volume was around 10 to 12 ml per kg, which is wrong if anybody is doing it right now, because that causes volume trauma and also causes barotrauma. So the always remember, the most important factor that affects is the lung volume. So we will see that how it does in the coming slides. But the changes in the lung volumes have an impact on the pressures, and which these pressures then again have an impact on the circulatory system. So that is why these heart-lung interactions are very important. So a simple way to describe these interactions is to consider the interactions between two pumps. One is a smaller pump, which is a circulatory pump, that is the heart, which is contained in the larger pump, which is a respiratory pump. The respiratory pump acts as a suction pump, which develops a negative pressure to allow the air entry into the airways and the blood into the cardiac cavities, whereas the circulatory pump acts as a pressure pump, developing a positive pressure to eject the blood towards the arterial tree. And as the circulatory pump is contained within the thorax, the circulatory pump is affected by the pressures which are generated by the respiratory pump. So this is the basis of heart-lung interactions. It present in spontaneously breathing patients as well as mechanically ventilated patients. But remember, under physiological circumstances, they do not cause any significant hemodynamic effects. So before going ahead, I would like to emphasize on these three pressures. So the first one is the intra-alveolar pressure. That is the pressure that is developed inside the alveolus. And this pressure is also called as the intrapulmonary pressure. The next one is the intrapleural pressure, also called as the intrathoracic pressure. Now, what is this intrapleural pressure? This is a pressure that is present in the pleural space or the pleural cavity, which is basically a potential space. We feel that the parietal pleura, and there is a lot of gap in between the parietal pleura and the visceral pleura, but that's not so. It's actually a very thin potential space with a thin rim of fluid, that is a pleural fluid, and the pressure inside that potential space is called as the intrapleural pressure. And the last one is the transpulmonary pressure or the transmural pressure. This is nothing but the difference in between these two pressures. That is the intraalveolar pressure and the intrapleural pressure. So remember, the pressures which develop inside the alveolus is called as the intraalveolar pressure. The one that develops inside the pleural space is called as the intrapleural pressure. And the difference in between the two is called as the transpulmonary pressure. Now let's begin with the heart-lung interactions in spontaneously breathing patients. So I have emphasized mainly on the inspiratory phase of respiration. So be it spontaneous respiration or be it control ventilation, I am mainly focusing on the inspiratory phase. Remember that the changes on the preload and the afterload that are going to happen during inspiration are going to be opposite as that of the expiration, except for a few parameters which we will be discussing in the further slides. But I am mainly focusing on the changes happening during inspiration of spontaneously breathing patients as well as inspiration of mechanically ventilated patients. So let's see the pressures and the volume changes that happen during spontaneous breathing. So this is the lung volume. This lung volume. This is the basal reference point. This is the end expiration. During inspiration, when we take a breath, this is the normal quiet breathing. This is not the deep breathing. Okay, so normal quiet breathing, we take a breath, the lung volume increases, reaches the end of inspiration, and during expiration, the lung volume falls to the basal value again. Now, talking about the intrapulmonary pressure or the intraalveolar pressure. Now, remember that at the end expiratory phase, the intraalveolar pressure is equal to the atmospheric pressure. That is the reason why there is no flow of air from the alveoli to the outside or from outside to the inside. There is no flow because there is no pressure difference, there is no pressure gradient in between the two, that is the alveoli and the atmosphere. So the atmospheric pressure is actually 760 mm Hg. So the same intraalveolar pressure is also going to be 760 mm of Hg. Why have we taken it as zero? Because there is no change. So that is why we are seeing the differences in the pressures that are happening. So we are taking only the value here. So that is why zero is taken as a reference point, that the intraalveolar pressure is zero. When we take a breath, again, this is during normal quiet breathing. When we take a breath, the alveolar starts to expand. So according to Boyle's law, where P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2, which means that the pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. So as the volume in the alveolar starts to build, the pressure starts to decrease. So that is why from 0 it becomes -1 till the mid inspiration. After the mid inspiratory phase, as the alveolus now starts to fill with more air, the pressure has to again go back to normal. That is, again it has to go back to 0. Once it reaches the baseline value, that is the 0 value, after the inspiratory pause, we expire, we exhale. And once we exhale, again according to Boyle's law, the volume decreases as we exhale, the pressure starts to rise until it reaches the mid expiratory phase where it is maximum, and then again it starts to decline till 0. So this is how the intraalveolar pressure works. As far as intrapleural pressure is concerned, during spontaneous breathing, it is always negative. To begin with, it is from -5. Now, why this is negative? So just consider that there are two glass slides, which we used to have in our histology lectures. So consider there are two glass slides. You have placed one over the other with a drop of oil or with some water in between the two slides. If there is no water or if there is no oil, and if you have placed the two glass slides together, it is very easy to pull them apart. But now that there is some oil or there is some fluid in between these two glass slides, try to pull them apart. It will be very difficult. So whenever you are doing that, there is some negative pressure which is generated in between the two. So this is equated, or this is considered the same in case of the pleural cavity. Now what is happening? There is parietal pleura, there is visceral pleura. Parietal pleura lines the thoracic cavity, that is the rib cage, and the visceral pleura lines the lungs. And the potential space in between them contains a thin rim of pleural fluid, just like how the two glass slides work. Now, the intrinsic tendency of the chest wall is to expand. That is because of its elasticity. And the intrinsic tendency of the lungs is to recoil. That is because of the presence of surfactant and because of the elasticity again. So, ideally, the chest wall tends to expand, the lung tends to recoil. So, these are opposing forces. So, that is why whenever there is a fluid in between two surfaces which are trying to move away from each other, there is a negative pressure development. So that is why this intrapleural pressure is always negative. So to begin with, this intrapleural pressure is -5. When we take a breath till the end of inspiration, it keeps declining further, because in that aspect now, the chest wall is again moving forwards because we are taking a breath. And the chest wall is now trying to move the lung also, because there is air that is getting filled inside the alveoli. Remember, there is a negative pressure in between the two. Once you try to pull one glass slide out of the two glass slides which have negative pressure, so it has to, if you're trying to pull the first glass slide towards you, this, it will also pull the second glass slide, but with excessive generation of the negative pressure. So the same thing is happening here also, that once we are taking a breath, the thoracic cavity moves outwards. There is an outward movement of the thoracic cavity. The lungs also get filled with the alveoli. It tries to move the lungs also forward, and the intrapleural pressure becomes more negative the intrapleural pressure, more is the